What's this bit? Hitler. Little Hitler, look. I wonder if Hitler was a bad guy. Do you think Hitler was maybe a good guy and they made him bad? With what's going on at the moment with the fake virus, it does make me wonder whether things we've been told about in the past is actually lies. Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 136 of the So Free Art podcast, which is a little podcast that I do about the art and things. And this one today, we're going back in time. We're going back in time to around episode 50 or something, where what I used to do was, I used to just randomly pull a topic out of my little pink handbag, and lilDENNiS, he was pulling out random topics for us. So we're going to do that today, and then what we do is we have 15 minutes to talk about it. I set a little timer. You've got 15 minutes to talk about it, and when the time stops, you got to stop talking, basically. But you can, if you're watching on YouTube at youtube.com/SophieLawson, you can see little Moley. He's funny, but if you want to name the mole, leave a comment in the thing, or send an email or something, and you can win this book, How to Keep a Sketch Journal, which is a beautiful little book. And all you got to do to win it is name the mole. And the only rule is, little Moley has to their name has to begin with the letter M. And they can be a male or a female, or transgender if you want it. So that's that little thing there. So this week, let's get into it. lilDENNiS is going to start it for it. Oh, what was it I was going to say? Yeah. On YouTube, at youtube.com/SophieLawson, next week, so the day after this podcast, I'm starting a new series of videos. I've already recorded the first episode, and it's called Why I Love. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about all the things I love. So the first one I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite art tools, and I think it's going to be really fun, this. So all I do is I talk about reasons why I love certain things, and I think it'll be fun. So you can look out for that next week. The first episode's on Wednesday, but I did a little introduction thing explaining what they're going to be about, which will go out tomorrow on Monday. But lilDENNiS, doing. He's going to start this one off. Little kitty kisses as well. I do think she is about to give birth. She's been very sort of lethargic, I suppose, lately. Little kitty. Very lethargic. So I think the babies are coming. But lilDENNiS, let's get into this one. So he's putting his head in. And I can't remember what these topics are, but they're all very random. And the thing is, if one of the topics is talking about something like something on the website, because the website's broken, I'll have to pull another one out. But lilDENNiS, he's pulled it. What's he got here? Oh, it says 11 years. 11 years. So let's start the timer. We've got 15 minutes to talk about this. So on this, I think lilDENNiS has pulled out a good one here. I put him in his little house. So this is a very interesting one, this. 11 years. It's my old gender therapist. What she said was, this is amazing. My old gender therapist, because what I've noticed is a lot of therapists and counsellors and stuff, I feel like what happens is they have had a life of struggle, and then they overcome it, and because they've overcome it, they use that to help other people overcome their struggles and stuff. So what happened was, I think it would have been about 2017, something like that, maybe 2016. So it was only about 2 or 3 years after I'd started going to the gender therapist, and I was thinking to myself, this is taking ages. Because the thing was, and I'm still struggling with it. I talk about it on the podcast sometimes. Things like social anxiety and just, things like that. But also my gender. So the thing is, I was said to her, this is... Because what happens is, sometimes you get to a point where you think, you feel like it's taking so long, and it feels like you're never going to be able to overcome the issues. So let's take, for example, social anxiety, or maybe transitioning. So what I said to her was, I said, this is taking so long. She said to me, she told me her life story, and she told me about what she went through, which was amazing. Because again, it created like a connection between us when she told me about her story, but she said 11 years. It took her 11 years of counselling and therapists to overcome her like issues, and that inspired me so much. Because the thing is, that day inspired me so much because until that point, I had always looked up to this gender therapist as almost like a magical being, because she was to me, she's the most perfect person that's ever come into my life. I've always said she's like a gift from the universe. But the thing is, that day when she told me about her story, I realised that she was in some sort of way a bit like me. So 11 years ago, or longer, she would have been just like me, struggling with issues. And the thing was, after 11 years, she finally got to this place where she was very, I suppose, complete. And she was starting to help other people overcome their different issues. So I got inspired because I thought to myself, 11 years, there was so much in that. The first thing is, it shows you that you see somebody and you think they've got their life together, but you don't see what got them to that point. Yeah, so they've had to go through like a lot of struggle to get there. So that inspires me, because I think, I'm going through the struggle at the minute, but if I keep like determined and keep seeking help and stuff, you can get there in the end. And then maybe you can then start helping other people and stuff. So it was quite. That was probably. I feel like that was one of the most powerful days of my life, actually. Yeah, because I've never forgot that. And it's almost like all this spiritual stuff I'm going through now. It's like lucid dreaming, for example. Yeah, lucid dreaming is such it's an incredibly long process. And the thing is, sometimes you'll go through months or something where you're not really having any lucid dreams, and it becomes very discouraging. But the thing is, as long as you focus and you keep doing what you keep practicing, it's like everything. This is why it's so amazing. That it's like everything. You can put it to everything. All you've got to remember is 11 years. In other words, things that you want to achieve, which are really big things, they're going to take time. But the thing is, if you keep chipping away at it, you'll get there in the end. And that's the thing. And there's so much come out of this, because it was then that I really started thinking about this baby step approach to life. So what you do is, because it would have been about 2016 or 2017, just when I started hormones, when I started my transition. So instead of being overwhelmed by the thought of trying to transition, all I had to do was break it into these little things. Yeah, and then I started realising you can do it with anything. It's like everything. For example, drawing. If you want to get good at drawing, or like the portraits, when I wanted to try to learn how to draw portraits, what you do is you break it down. So you break it into like the eyes, how to hold the pencil, how to do the pencil. But if you just go into it saying, I'm going to get good at portraits, and you haven't broken it into these little things, it's going to become very, overwhelming, and you probably will give up on it. But the thing is, what you do is you break it into these little things, and then you get excited because you're making progress. You're making little bits of progress, and in the back of your head, you're always remembering 11 years. So it's almost like you're always remembering what the big thing you want to achieve is, but you, in a weird way, you sort of forget about it because all you're doing is focusing on this little thing. Yeah, you focus on the little thing, like for instance, practicing drawing eyes on a portrait, and then you start practicing drawing noses, and then before you know it, you can actually do the big thing. This goes into that thing I've talked about before as well. Well, yeah, a little bit, like this thing with the face masks. Because I don't personally believe there is a virus out there. So I think there is some sort of conspiracy type thing. Yeah, something going on. I say it's something a bit fishy. But I think they've done the same thing, but in reverse. So what they've done is they've thought to themselves, right, what do we want to do? And it might be something like they want to get the humans suppressed and in fear and under their control. There's no way they could do that straight away. So what they've done is they've reverse engineered it, and they've said, right, what we do have to do is we'll say there's a virus, we'll then say you got to wear face masks bit by bit, and they'll end up getting the big thing in the end. But it's going to be a long process of 11 years. But the thing is, because if you're focusing on the big thing, you're never going to achieve it, because it's just going to always be a long way away. But if you focus on the little things, that big thing just naturally happens. So again, with my transition, like when I first said I'm going to transition into Sophie, it was impossible. It really was impossible. But so what I did was, because I got really discouraged with it, because it felt impossible, because I was focusing on trying to transition. So I was thinking about going from Kevin to Sophie overnight, but that doesn't happen. You've got to do it in little bits. So you start out, for instance, like painting your nails, changing your clothes, little things like that. And what happens is that builds the momentum. So these little things build the momentum. But like I said, you've got to balance the big thing with the little thing. Yeah, you've got to balance, because what you've got to do is you've got to keep in your mind the big thing you're trying to achieve, because otherwise the little things that you won't know. It's almost like the little things are puzzle pieces to achieve the big thing. But so if you're not thinking about the big thing, you might end up like not doing the little things, because you won't know what the little things are aiming for. So it's this constant thing. And what I've noticed is the best way to do this basically is trying to achieve a big goal, which is impossible at the moment because you're not ready for it. But so what you have to do is what I've found is a good thing is to write it down. Write down what you want to do, no matter how bonkers it is. and what you do is you sort of think, right, that's impossible. But you sort of think about it and you think, what can I do to make it possible? And you revert, like I said, you reverse engineer it, and you keep breaking it down until you've broken it down enough that one of the little goals you've got to do, you look at it. For instance, it might be going out with your nails painted. You look at it and you think, that's really quite scary, but I know I can do it. And that's the moment that you've got to do it, because then you know you can do it. So what happens is you do it, and then the next thing might be something like wearing lipstick or something. And because you've proven that you can do the nails, again, like habits, you keep doing it. In the end, you'll do it without even realising it. It will just become the new normal. And then you think, well, I've done that, I might as well do the lipstick. Then you do your lips, and then you just keep doing it like that. The next thing you know, and it's weird. It doesn't happen overnight, but it sort of does. Because what happens is, all of a sudden, you'll go out, what'll happen is, all of a sudden, you'll realise you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. And you don't even realise you've done it sometimes. It's quite beautiful, really, I think. But that's basically that. What have we got here? We've got 3.5 minutes. Is there any other little thing? Basically, I think the thing to sum this up is, when you are overwhelmed by something, I would say the best thing to do is to write about it. Write about why you're overwhelmed by it. And you'll normally find it's because you're trying to do something that you're not ready for. It's weird because you have to do things when you're not ready for them, but you have to make sure it's not too big. Again, because if you do something that is too scary, it might actually push you further back. So it's this weird thing. But the thing is, it always comes down to this. There's a feeling inside of you. There's a feeling where you know you'll look at something that you've got to do, and you'll know that you can do it. You can just feel that you can do that. And there might be something else which is next to it, like another thing to do, and you look at it, and, like for me at the moment, I want to interview guests on a podcast, but that's too big. It's too scary. I've tried my best to break it down. I've tried to break it down, and what I've worked out is that I can break it down by interviewing guests via emails, so I at least get used to like contacting people. And then what will happen is, once I got used to doing that, I could then send an email and say, oh, would you like to come on the podcast? And maybe start out by doing audio and then do videos. So I've broken it down, but that one of writing an email is, I know I can do that one. Yeah, I need to listen to myself and do it. I did break it down even further though, because I said what I'll do is I'll dress up as Spider-Man, and I'll go in the park and I'll interview random people with little chunks of like interviews. So instead of trying to do a big 20-minute interview or something, all I've got to do is a little 1-minute thing. It will just be little 1-minute interviews with random people. So I am doing this. I'm trying my best to break this big thing, which is scary, of interviewing guests on the podcast. I am breaking it down, but the thing is, there's something stopping me. It's fear. But the thing here, I would say, when you've got something that's big and it's overwhelming, the reason it's overwhelming is because you're trying to do it before you've done something else which needs to be done before you can do it. Yeah, so you have to, like I said, if you write about it, really write about it, and you'll be able to chunk it down into little things. I feel like that's the best thing about that. But we've got 19 seconds. So I would say 11 years. I've actually got it written. I've got it written on my whiteboard. Up on my whiteboard, I've put in big letters 11 years. Because it's one of those things, there's like I look at that. That's it. Time is up. The thing with that 11 years is I look at it and it's almost like 1,000 things are said in those two little words. 11 years. Yeah, it's quite amazing that. But that's basically that. I enjoyed that one. Boing. I always feel a little bit like I'm rambling a bit with those, but they're fun. It's fun because you don't know what you're going to talk about. So let's get in. All we've got left is this week's inspirational quote. And I'm going to pull out a random quote from this book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I haven't even looked inside of this yet. My mum got it for my birthday. And I love Joe Dispenza. I would say Joe Dispenza, his book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, that book changed my life. Without that book, I don't think I would have transitioned. So what I'm going to do is lilDENNiS, he's going to randomly pick a page and he's put his hand on there. So this is the quote. Hopefully this will be good. What do we say? This week's little inspirational quote is, certainly our bodies are designed to use energy in each of the centres as I have outlined. But what happens when we do more with our energy than just survive? What happens when, instead of releasing all our energy outward, to procreate, to digest food, to run from danger and so on, we begin to consistently evolve some of that energy upward from our centre to the next, increasing its frequency as it ascends. No, that's not this week's quote, Dennis. We need a snappy one. Let's have a look at this one. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I like this. Yeah, this is brilliant. So this is what this book's... Actually, shall I pick a quote from the back? It's quite hard finding quotes sometimes. I wanted to pull out a random quote. Come on, lilDENNiS. It says, I wrote this book to take what I've always thought was possible to the next level of understanding. Well, that's good, because that kind of links into what I was talking about. I wrote this book to take what I've always thought was possible to the next level of understanding. What did it say after that? I wanted to demonstrate to the world that we can create better lives for ourselves, and that we are not linear beings living linear lives, but dimensional beings living dimensional lives. Oh, that's brilliant. So this week's little inspirational quote goes to Joe Dispenza from the book Becoming Supernatural, and it is, we are not linear beings living linear lives, but dimensional beings living dimensional lives. That's cool, that. Dr. Joe Dispenza. Oh, cool. What's this then? We've got another Hitler-tash. It's quite cool when you hot chocolate onion. You can make like little Hitler-tashes. I think we should all bring back the Hitler-tash. Yeah, I think everyone should start wearing Hitler moustaches. They look quite sexy, I think.